So one more point that we need to look at with regard to this issue of transforming problems is our attitude towards problems in general. When problems happen in our life, we probably view them as bad things. Things we don't like, things we don't want, things we want to push away, get rid of, and so on. Is that right? I know I do. I do. So I think that's just normal, natural. And I don't think it's bad to feel that way because, for example, the lamas always or often repeat this phrase, all sentient beings want happiness. All sentient beings want to be free of suffering, right? You heard that many times from the lamas. And I think that's just the way we are. You know, we're just normal beings and we want to be happy. We don't want to suffer. And I don't think it's bad. I've never heard anyone say, you shouldn't feel that way. It's bad to feel that way. It's just the way we are. It's our normal experience. We want good experiences, we don't want bad experiences. So it's just normal. Then when bad experiences, bad things happen to us, we feel, no, I don't want this, I don't like this. So I don't think, we should feel bad or guilty if we do react that way. But still, it's good to look at that reaction, to question that reaction. Is that reaction really valid and correct? So in this teaching on thought transformation, transforming problems into the path, it's said that we should try to change our attitude about problems so that instead of seeing them as bad, I don't like them, I don't want them, we should try to have a more open attitude. And then it said that even at some point, one might come to see problems as good things. There's a book by Lama Zopa Rinpoche called Transforming Problems into Happiness. Is that in Hebrew?
Not yet.
Yeah, anyway. It's a nice book. So that's exactly about this topic we're talking about, how to transform problems into happiness. And he said that for a bodhisattva, someone who's really following the bodhisattva's path, they don't feel aversion, dislike towards problems. They actually feel happy about problems. In the same way we feel happy about ice cream. If somebody offers to take us for an ice cream, oh yeah, let's have an ice cream. So we're kind of delighted about the chance to eat ice cream or some other delicious food. So in that same kind of attitude that we have about ice cream, the bodhisattvas have about problems. They like problems. They think problems are great. And I don't think that's because they're masochistic or, there's something not working properly in their mind, but because they have been learning and meditating a lot on the path and have come to the point where they can really recognize the value, the benefit of problems and bad experiences, because they know, probably have a lot of experience, that problems really help. If you know how to work with them, you know how to deal with them, they can really be a source of great learning and growth and transformation on the path. Okay, so for us that idea probably sounds kind of strange, but let's look at that. So there's a quotation here under point number 3, are problems necessarily bad? So this quotation is from Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which you're studying. But I don't know how far you've got.
No, self-study book is chapter 1, but we studied chapter 6 a few times with different teachers.
Yeah, chapter 6 is a really useful one. It's about patience. So in that chapter, there's this quotation pointing out good qualities of suffering. He says, furthermore, suffering has good qualities. Through being disheartened with it, arrogance is dispelled, compassion arises for those in cyclic existence, negativities are shunned, and joy is found in virtues. So these are some of the good things that can come from working with problems. Of course, you have to know how to work with problems. If you don't know how to work with problems, these things may not happen. But if you do know how to work with problems, these are some of the benefits you can get from them. So he says, the second line says, arrogance is dispelled, pride. Yeah, so pride, arrogance is one of the delusions according to Buddhism. It's one of the mental factors that is an obstacle to spiritual growth, and it can also motivate us to behave in unskillful ways. You know, when somebody's very proud, very arrogant, they think, wow, I'm so great, I'm so fantastic. And that can lead them to abuse, misuse, mistreat other people, to misuse the power that they have, money, and so forth. So a person can create negativities, negative karma, as a result of pride and arrogance. But also in the spiritual path, it's said to be an obstacle, because if we have arrogance, it kind of makes our mind closed. You know, like we think, I know it all, I know everything. And then we may meet a person who actually knows more than we do and could teach us a thing or two. But if we have this pride, this attitude of pride or arrogance, we close off to that person. We think, nah, this person doesn't know anything, I know more than them, so our mind is closed. Does that make sense? So it's not a good state of mind, and it's even an obstacle to have that state of mind. So when things are going well in our life, you know, everything's going fine, everything's going great, we feel like we're on top of the world, we can get into this attitude of arrogance and pride, think that we're better than we are, know more than we are. But when problems happen, bad things happen to us, it's sort of, being arrogant is like being a big balloon, you know, all puffed up with air. So a problem is like, you know, a pin pricking the balloon, all that air goes out. So it can really humble us. It can bring us down to earth, more in touch with reality, more in touch with ourselves, more in touch with others, and so on. So it's useful. It can be very useful to become more humble and less arrogant. And then the third line says, compassion arises for those in cyclic existence. So compassion, as you probably know, is a really important aspect of the path. Especially the Mahayana path. But even in the Theravada, even to attain nirvana, liberation, you still need to develop compassion for every living being, universal compassion. So it's an essential part of the Buddhist path. And we already do have compassion, but we need to increase it. We need to have more of it. And when we have a problem, some bad thing happens to us, that is a great opportunity for increasing our compassion, because when we have an experience that's difficult, then we can understand all the other people and beings who have that kind of problem too. Because if we don't go through some difficulty ourselves, for example, depression, you know, there's some people who may never feel depressed. But then when they know somebody who's going through depression, they may not understand what that person's going through. They don't understand it. And they might try to help, but the things they say may not be very helpful and may even make them worse, you know, like, oh, let's just go out and have a party, you know, have a good time. Oh, just snap out of it. Just stop feeling that way. Be happy. So they say things like that, which, you know, shows a lack of real understanding of what it's like to be depressed. And the depressed person may even be more depressed instead of feeling better. Whereas when you have this experience of depression, you have that first-hand experience, then you know what it's like. And then when someone else is depressed, you're in a better position to understand what they're going through and be able to support them and help them and say things that are helpful rather than hurtful. So that's one of the greatest benefits of suffering is compassion. that you know what it's like to suffer, and then you can understand other people when they are suffering, and you're in a better position to know how to be with them, how to support them, how to help them, and so on. So, and then the last line is talking about karma. It says, negativities are shunned and joy is found in virtue. So we'll get to this later, how you can use a problem, a difficulty, to reflect on karma and increase your determination to try to live according to karma. That's a really important aspect of Buddhism. There's a Discovering Buddhist module on karma, isn't there? Yeah, so you know all about it. You know everything about karma. But still, so when a problem happens to us, a Buddhist would think, well, there's a reason why this is happening. It's because of karma. I created some karma in the past. I must have done something, sometime, somewhere, maybe in a past life, that was the cause for this to be happening to me now. So then you can use that to make a strong determination. Okay, so now I know what happens if I do that kind of action. And I don't like this to be happening to me. I don't want it to happen again. I don't want it to continue happening more and more in the future. Therefore, I must really make sure I stop creating the cause of it. I stop doing the things that bring about this kind of suffering. And if I want good experiences instead of bad ones, then I have to make sure I create good karma. I do the opposite kind of behavior. So you can use a problem then to really strengthen your determination to avoid non-virtue, negative actions, and do virtue, positive actions, so that in the future you'll have more happiness and less suffering, less problems. So that's another benefit of problems. So we could also just think about our own experiences in life. And we've probably all had times when, we had some kind of problem, some kind of difficulty, and maybe for a while it was really unpleasant, really painful, and maybe we were kind of floundering, not knowing what to do, how to handle it, but maybe we found a way of dealing with it that enabled us to grow and learn something and, use that experience in a positive way. And also we may hear stories from other people like this. So somebody that I know told me that when he was in his 20s, he had cancer. And he said it was the best thing that happened to him in his life, which is quite extraordinary. I mean, nobody likes cancer, but especially in your 20s. I mean, that's pretty young to have cancer. And so I asked him why. Why was it such a good thing? And he said two things. One was, while he was getting treatment and recovering from cancer, he had to stay at home with his family. And prior to that, he didn't get along well with his family. There were lots of conflicts and bad feelings and so on. So while he was with his family, they worked on things and managed to resolve things. And so he said he came to a really nice place with his family. They healed the past wounds and they got on really well. So that was one of the benefits of this bout with cancer. The other benefit was he became interested in meditation. Before that he wasn't. So while he was sick, going through cancer, he began meditating, becoming interested in the spiritual path. And then at the time when I met him, he was really gung-ho. In fact, he became a monk, and he's still a monk living in a monastery in South India, really studying like the Geshe studies to get a Geshe degree. So he's really, last time I saw him, he looked so happy. So his life just totally turned around as a result of getting cancer. Of course, that doesn't happen to everybody, but if we know that it's possible to use difficulties in a positive way, and we use these different methods for turning problems into beneficial things, then we can.
So it's recommended to have a cancer.
No, you don't have to, but just the point is, the point of this isn't to look for problems, to create problems, to make problems, but rather when problems come, when problems happen, which they will, no worries.
People that have cancer or have cancer, they say it's the most gifted thing they got. Many people say it's not one.
Yeah.
And maybe even loss or something, because there is a shift in the mind that you don't have to practice, and it caused by this accident.
Yeah. But it doesn't happen to everybody. There are also
Don't
people,
wish for it.
I heard of somebody who got cancer and he was so angry. He was angry at his doctors that they didn't find it earlier, and he died angry. So it's not that cancer itself brings this about. It can be a catalyst for transformation.
So that's exactly what I was insinuating so gently. The thing is, I have to express my uneasiness concerning the fact that it seems like a new age concept to take a lemon and make it a lemonade. I mean, I don't feel that Buddhism intends to use the problem in order to grow. I don't know, you know better if it's a new attitude about it, or this is Buddha saying, or Shantideva or something. It seems to me, I don't know, my ears tell me it's a modern concept to market it nicely. Because problems are coming, we don't choose them, they come.
Exactly.
The question is our inner attitude. To change a problem into growing is, I'm sorry, it's artificial. It's not convincing.
Why?
Why? I don't know.
How can it be artificial if you use it and you proceed and you develop through it?
I think that we're not used to stay in a problem. Let's say you're sick.
Sorry?
To start, we are not used, if we have a problem, we have a tendency to run away from it. You can't stay in it.
To solve it, to go to hospital,
Not always you
to
can
do
solve
something.
it.
No, wait a minute. Maybe your idea is that if you have a problem, you should only do transformation and not go to the doctor, not go to the hospital,
No, I'm not so idiot.
No, because it's completely fine to find normal solutions, like medical solutions to your problems. So you can go to the doctor, you can get medicine, you can try to free yourself from the problem. But the thing is, it may not work. For example, just recently I met somebody who was working in a pain clinic, and he said that for people suffering from chronic pain, medication doesn't always work. In fact, it only works 30% of the time. Okay, so the normal solutions don't always work. So then it's useful to have internal solutions, ways in which you can transform your mind, your attitude. And also, even if the solution does work, it may take some time before it works. So the problem might still be there. So while it's there, you can work with these other methods. But you don't have to. It's your choice. It's completely your choice if you want to use these methods or not.
If I understand you well, the subject of your talking is attitude.
Yeah.
Not how to change lemon to lemonade. Just a minute. If the subject is attitude, my following question is, why, we accept the definition of the Buddha, life is suffering, dukkha.
Mm-hmm.
Just a minute, I want to ask you, what is dukkha is part of our definition what is dukkha. Why doesn't Buddha say, just a minute, death is, we can solve it, it's inevitable. So maybe we should change our attitude towards death, to be happy that we die. I'm saying that
This is the position.
we are happy to die.
That's exactly what
I didn't hear Buddha saying
Yeah.
we should be happy.
No, we have to
Why am I talking about my pain and everybody's laughing? Why everybody's so happy
Funny.
about it?
You're funny.
Make it a lemonade.
Even Jenny's.
I don't think,
The attitude.
Yeah.
The first of-
I mean, you're raising a good point, because I think on the conventional level, just in the world, most people don't want to die.
Yes, of
Most
course.
people see death
Clinging.
as a suffering,
Yes,
yeah?
clinging.
But then the point is, the way we look at it, the way we think about it, the way we respond to it can make it more painful or less painful.
Of course.
That's the
Why
point
don't-
here.
Why don't I educate myself, first of all, my children? It's wonderful to die. It's inevitable anyway. So, and instead, Buddha says, no, it's dukkha, we have to die. So you are creating a
that's
problem.
Nobody
That's
said
That's
No.
nice.
Sorry. Okay, that is
You have
saying,
to do the
he's
course
praising
again,
this.
maybe.
Okay.
Well, I think when he said death is dukkha, he's just talking about the general view, what most people
But he
regard
wants
as
to
dukkha.
change it.
But
He
when
wants to
he
help us.
passed away, when he went through the experience of death, he wasn't suffering. He didn't suffer.
Okay.
And many beings, not just Buddhas, and my mother,
Not just
for
Buddhas.
example,
Absolutely not just
many beings are able to go through the experience of dying
I'm
with
asking,
little
why don't
suffering.
we educate ourselves, our children, our society
Go ahead.
to check?
Well, let him finish. Let him finish. Educate them to do what?
To feel that this is happy
no,
event.
it's not happiness.
Well-
Happy event. Why do we celebrate birthday? It's a very happy, but birthday
Who
means
is
well
we,
done
by
today.
the way?
Me.
You.
I celebrated my children,
Okay,
my
then
daughter
you talk
yesterday,
about
my
yourself.
daughter's birthday.
But also
Yeah.
that is only part of life. It's a, if we're talking about dukkha, that is one thing, but you know, you have, as you said before, the problems comes all the time, okay? They're there, they every minute, every second.
What about this? What about this? Why don't we change our attitude towards it?
Not something.
What do
Well,
you
I think
mean?
we
Who is
can.
Again, Meir, some people do change their attitude towards that.
Yeah.
Not Shuki, I don't know how to do that, I'm working on it. Maybe also you cannot, at least not for today. Some people are successful in doing it,
נכון.
based on these things, on these teachings, not on some other thing, not on something that is New Age. My root guru, he didn't have any problem going to death, and he knew he was going to die from cancer in his stomach.
Was he happy?
Yes.
He didn't have a problem. That one doesn't mean
He
he's
was
happy.
not suffering
Okay, he's not suffering.
as much
I
as
mean,
I
then
saw
it's
I saw, and I saw other people dying. He did not suffer as much. Okay, and I wish for myself, okay, to be able to somewhat accomplish a portion of what he had accomplished. That's a huge achievement. That's a huge achievement.
And
I mean, it's not everyone is the same. And you know, I'm here and you're there. Everyone is in a different position on the path. I mean, we all look the same. We are not in the same place. I mean, he was blessing me that Daniela was dying. Okay, he told me 1,000 hours on this cushion will not teach you what you are learning now. And I thought he was just being nice. That's all. Like all the Tibetan geshes and gurus and whatnot. But that's what he told me. And then he died 2 months before Daniela. And I knew what was going on with him every minute. Different story than what I know about dying. Different story, something to look into. Because as you said, the suffering will come. And the suffering of death, okay, I don't know how much it concerns you, but if somebody scratches your car, you're already suffering. This is suffering, right there. Just scratching your car, just not answering your email, is suffering. And what are we going to do about this? So we can say, okay, this is life. nothing to do about it. Not everyone in Kiryat Ono is here today, by the way. Most people are not. We are here. Why we are here? Because we acknowledge the fact that suffering comes day in, day out. And at the end, the grand finale, we are dying. So what to do now? What to do now? Come to have coffee with Shuki.
No, it's a good question what you're bringing up, but let's carry on, and maybe you'll get more answers. So point number 4 is just some kind of light advice from the Dalai Lama about how we can deal more positively with difficulties. This is from the book The Art of Happiness. Again, he was discussing with Howard Cutler, the psychiatrist. And so he mentioned a few things. One is just to look for positive aspects of a problem, things that you can learn from it. So when a problem is happening, and of course, naturally, we feel, I don't want this, I don't like this, and, you know, probably get somewhat agitated. But if we notice that, if we notice ourselves reacting in that way, and then we want to take a more positive stance, this is one thing we could do. Okay, is there something I can learn from this situation? Is there something positive about this situation? So we might find something positive, we might not, but that's one suggestion that he made. And the second is, this is really practical. He says, what happens when we have a problem is the mind tends to get somewhat obsessed with it, focusing very much. And this just happens automatically, you know. You just keep thinking over and over again, oh, my problem, oh, it's terrible, oh, what can I do about it, you know. So you just get obsessed with it. And he says, if we do this, then the effect is that the problem can seem bigger than it really is. Sort of blows it up like a balloon, you know. It seems really huge. Like we say in English, making a mountain out of a molehill. So in some cases, the problem might actually be quite small, but we obsess about it, focus on it. Oh, it's terrible, terrible. So then it can appear like a big mountain. And then a way to counter that is to think about other people who have problems. To think, I'm not the only one in the world who has problems. Other people have problems too. Because that's another thing that happens. I think it's just something the mind goes into automatically. You might look at other people and think, oh, they're so happy, they're doing so well. They don't have problems like me. Have you ever noticed that? The mind, you know? It's crazy, isn't it, what the mind does? Huh? So it's like our mind just plays these tricks on us, and they make it worse. Because then if you feel, my problem is really huge, other people don't have problems, then you feel alone and isolated and cut off from other people. And that makes you feel worse, because on top of having the problem, you also feel isolated and alone, disconnected from others. And that worsens the problem, worsens the suffering. So a way to counteract that is to deliberately bring to mind other people and the problems that they have. And that will make you realize you're not the only one who has problems. Other people have problems too. Another thing you realize is that some people have worse problems than you do. So, you know, maybe you have some sickness, or you've lost your job, or you've lost something, even if, you know, a loved one. That's really a painful experience. But then, you know, there are people who've lost multiple loved ones. For example, in a natural disaster, or in a war, famine, you know, epidemic, and so on. So in some places in the world, huge numbers of people are dying, and, you know, one person may lose multiple family and friends at the same time. So having your own first-hand experience of that particular suffering puts you in a position to understand those people and how they are suffering. and then you feel connected. Yeah? Being aware of others and their suffering makes you feel connected with others. And if you do this right, if you do this skillfully, it can help you have more compassion. It can increase your compassion, but it also decreases your suffering. You're less focused on, less obsessed with your problem, and then it won't seem as huge and unbearable. And instead, you might see it as bearable, manageable. It gives you courage. This is what the Dalai Lama says. He said, compassion gives courage. When you can open up to others and how they are suffering and feel a wish to help them with their suffering, it gives tremendous compassion. Courage. It gives you courage, strength to be able to manage it. Did you have your hand up?
Yes. I want to raise something. I think that in many talks the subject of cancer comes up. I think that I think there are other illnesses that are much worse than cancer. There are illnesses that there are no cure for them.
Yeah.
And especially, I think people that has cancer, they get a lot of affection from the surrounding. If it's from the doctors or friends, but it's less popular, for example, with people that are mentally ill. And then it's not only like they're suffering from depression, it's very difficult to talk about it. The families are ashamed to talk about it. It's not a bon ton. It's not something.
Doesn't have a good public relations.
I think, and many times, you see it, and thinking about how can we maybe change it, because I think it's a big thing, especially in the Western world. And of course, those people that are, somebody that has cancer maybe even can have the mental ability, and many do, as you said, for example, the person to say yes, but mentally I'm okay. Let's see how I'm getting out of that. I'll be okay, I hope so, with medical and with my family and everything. People that are mentally not well, there are many times they're alone, many times they are out of the community, the families are having to take this load usually by themselves. And I think it's something I don't know what to do with it, but it's something that...
Yeah, one of my teachers once said that mental suffering is worse than physical suffering. And I was so glad to hear that, because I think it's true. And also because it's invisible, like you say, it's easier for other people to understand pain, injury, cancer, physical sickness. But mental sickness, it's so hard for others to understand unless they have been through it themselves, unless they know what it's like. And also these other things like stigma and shame and so on. I was really encouraged a few months ago. I think it was Prince Harry of England. He came out and talked about how much he had suffered from his mother's death. And for like 20 years, he just stuffed his emotions. He didn't want to look at them and talk about. He just avoided them, but he was kind of falling apart. So I think for a couple of years he was really in bad shape, and he went to therapy.
And he also...
Yeah, trying to escape. So then he came out and told his story, and really encouraged others to, also seek help if they are experiencing mental suffering. So I thought that was really courageous of him, because being a member of a royal family and coming out and saying, I went to see a psychologist, I had this suffering. So I think giving
Example.
it's a good example, giving,
Role model.
Sorry?
The role model.
Role model, for others to, you say you knew him?
He's human.
Oh, he's human. Yeah.
When somebody is in depression, I'm not sure they can say, oh, there are other people that suffering more than me, because it's so low when people are depressed, and they really need people around them, and they don't many times.
To overcome it is much more difficult.
Anyway, I read the BBC, and I just have noticed there's a lot more articles about, people in high positions or well-known people, celebrities and so on, coming out and talking about their mental illness, and it seems to be becoming more acceptable, more...
In Israel also, by the way, Amutat Enosh, in Israel.
Yeah. Not less of a feeling you have to hide it and keep it secret and not talk about it. So I think that's a good sign.
It usually they share it when they are after the episode of the depression. Now one is into depression, in the middle of the episode,
Yeah.
the acoustic time of the depression. Most of the times people can't talk and they isolate themselves. They don't want to share.
Yeah, it is hard to... Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. That is definitely one type of suffering. But still, I think even with that kind of suffering, these methods can be helpful. Because I suffer from depression sometimes, and I do find it helpful to realize I'm not the only one in the world who feels depressed. Other people do as well. And I'm better off than other people because at least I can function. I don't have to be locked up in a mental hospital. I can still stay in society and function. So seeing positive aspects, even though there's depression, but seeing positive aspects of it. And then I also feel if I can find ways of dealing with this, then I'll be in a better position to help other people. So that gives me a lot of energy, to find ways of handling it, healing it in myself, so that I can bring that to others and help others who go through that experience. So even, there are methods you can use to transform that experience.
What I wanted to say is that I think many people feel depression in times. It must not be mental illness, but I feel depressed many times, and I can say that I'm a psychotherapist, but this work helped me more than any psychotherapy that I was given or I gave, because it's a practice. And I feel when I'm depressed or someone dear to me, words doesn't help. Words doesn't help. You just hear them like something, it's not coming in. And when you practice, and it's hard to practice when you are very low, but still if you are used to it and you're devoted to it, you know that it helped you in good times and in any situation, even when you are happy. It's not like you're getting crazy when you are happy, not anymore. That's what I feel. And I know from problems that I suffered that I didn't want to get out of bed because I didn't feel like what's the point? It doesn't work. And now it doesn't I don't react, and I can say for 100% it's from this work. And it made me, it brought me closer to Judaism also, and I find there also many solutions. So many practices also there also. So there are many things to do, and not just words like see others suffering. It's not for me. It didn't help.
Yeah.
But the practice.
Yeah. You have to be careful with this one too, because if you don't do it well, if you're suffering and then you think about other people who are suffering, it might make you feel worse.
Yes.
Oh, there's so much suffering in the world, and it's so hopeless, it's so no solution. So you have to be careful with that. And if that's happening, you're getting worse, then you need to pull yourself back and try something else. So I think you already have to be pretty strong and optimistic to be able to do this one and have it work for you. And this, a couple of other quotes here on the next page. Again, from Shantideva. I love this one. Why be unhappy about something if it can be remedied? And what is the use of being unhappy about something if it cannot be remedied? So I find this really practical. When you're facing a problem, some bad thing is happening and the mind is getting carried away, worried, upset, oh, blah, blah. This is just a really practical thing to ask yourself, is there something I can do? Is there a solution, a remedy to this problem? And in some cases there is. There is something you can do. Yeah? So if there is something that can be done, do it. Just sitting around being unhappy, feeling unhappy, complaining, and so on and so on isn't going to help. Do it. Do what you can do. But in other cases, there may not be any remedy, nothing that can be done. And if that is the case, then it's best to just accept it. Why be unhappy about something that cannot be remedied? So there's a verse that's used in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is kind of similar to this, but I actually like it better. They call it the Serenity Prayer. You know that one? Something like
the things that I can change.
Accept the things that I cannot change, and the intelligence to
know the difference, yeah. So those three, huh?
So what is it?
the phrase.
Oh, it's something like, well, it's a prayer. Lord, grant me the courage to change what can be changed, the serenity to accept what cannot be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's really useful.
Yeah, but we don't have the wisdom. So you're transferring the problem to the next stage. We don't have the wisdom.
Well, you can develop, we all have a certain amount of wisdom, but we can increase it. We can increase it even more. And that's one of the reasons for learning Dharma, is, to learn more. And when we learn more, think about what we're learning, try it out, practice it. That will increase our wisdom. So we can increase wisdom, but also just on our own, like what he's saying here. Just ask yourself, is there something that can be done about this situation? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't.
This is the problem.
Sorry?
This is the problem.
What is the problem?
Can I do something or can I not do? This is the problem.
And distinguish between the two.
Things that I know I cannot solve easy. Things I know I can solve easy.
Not
We
that
are
easy.
still stuck in the middle. Is there something I can
Well,
do?
you can try.
I can tell you.
You can always
I am
try.
very worried if I will get a room, personal room in Copan.
So we already, right? And it's in the November course, so.
Yeah, it's going over.
He's suffering for a few months already. Oh, poor Jimmy.
Thank you very much.
Can you change it?
I can understand this. I can understand this. I
I'm
have,
very worried that
I
I
have
find
this-
myself with three people,
Snoring.
male, who would want to have homosexual relationship,
Wow.
or will snore, or will exist. And I
exist?
even exist. Their existence is disturbing me.
Exist.
Existence.
Oh, just their existence.
That they are alive.
Just,
So I'm
just,
worried, can
okay.
I do anything to convince Copan to give me a private room? Okay? So here is the problem.
Yes.
What I cannot do, I cannot do. What I can do, I can do. Now I'm stuck in the middle. Can I do something?
Yes, you can do
And it
something.
makes you very happy.
You go with this specific problem,
Yeah.
with these specific words,
Yeah.
to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, present to him the problem,
Yeah.
and you will be cured instantaneously. Instantaneously.
Get a room with 30 people.
It can be worse.
And he will be happy.
You can solve it, you can stay home.
No, you can get a hotel room in town and then just commute back and forth.
Every morning I take a cab.
Yep.
Can?
It's not good either, eh? So you can decide between having homosexual relationship.
Yeah,
or
because
taking-
Jenny is there.
Right,
Jenny is his wife. She's there also in the Kopan course, so she'll be far away if it'll be in the hotel outside.
Anyway, she's far.
But
They
she's
won't
far.
let us together anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
No, she's
Samsara. It's all the time.
Dukkha.
Well, you know, I sometimes worry about these kind of things.
Of course.
But what I find is worry tends to exaggerate. Worry tends to build up these worst case scenarios. Maybe this will happen, maybe that will happen, maybe. And what I find is the reality is usually not that bad. The reality is not as bad as my mind makes.
For the next problem?
Huh?
Does this?
Yes, it does. Just to recognize the mind, what the mind does, how it fantasizes and fabricates and makes up all these terrible stories. It really helps me. Because I'll just tell you the example. The first time I had to give a talk, it was a long time ago. I was at Kopan Monastery. I was a brand new nun, 22 years old, very shy. Somebody asked me to give a talk. And I said, yes, okay. But then right before the talk, I was just like, oh, so scared. I had stage fright. It was just a small group of people, but I was just so scared. So I sat down and I asked myself, why am I so scared? Why do I feel this way? And I could see that my mind was just creating these fantasies that I'll sit there in front of the people and just freeze and look stupid. Yeah, and everybody will think I'm an idiot and throw rotten tomatoes and eggs and, you know, garbage. This is what my mind was thinking. It's just going to be a total disaster. Total disaster. So I faced it and I said, okay, is that really going to happen? Is it definite that that will happen? And I realized, no, maybe not, maybe not. And then I thought, is there anything I can do to prevent it? And I thought, well, I can think about what I'm going to say beforehand and write it down, make some notes. So then I can at least look at that and remember, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And even if it doesn't turn out to be such a great talk, I thought, people are usually quite nice. And they're not going to sort of boo and throw, you know, rotten eggs at me. They'll probably realize, oh, she's just a shy young nun, and they'll take pity on me and be nice to me, and so on. So I managed to talk myself out of these fantasies that my mind had created and realize, okay, it's probably not going to be that bad. And it wasn't that bad when I actually did it. When I went through and gave it, it's probably not the greatest talk in the world, but at least it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. So that really taught me to look at my mind, look at what my mind is saying, all these worry, anxiety, fear, imagination, creating all these stories, and realize they may not be true. And even if they are true, I can find solutions. I can handle it. Yeah? So it's just like facing the fear, facing the anxiety, facing the mind's habit of making stories. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying? So maybe you could do the same. You could just think, why am I so worried about this? What do I think will happen? Is it definite that that will happen? Are there things I can do to solve the problem if that happens? I mean, if you end up with somebody who's snoring, you can ask to change to another room or ask that person to go to another room.
Or maybe you will be with 5 other men and you will learn the best lesson in your life. You don't know.
Thank you. I don't know good lessons.
No, but maybe you find yourself
So listen,
Maybe you find
all
yourself.
the problems, Mayor, that you see are merely a fabrication.
Yeah.
100% right.
Yeah.
Then you can erase them. Then you can erase them.
Yeah.
This you can change.
If you are in the room now and they are snoring, then they are snoring. But you are not in the room now and you are worried now. You are suffering now for a snoring that you didn't even hear.
And it might not even happen.
You are not in Kopan yet and you are already suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
So how about we just take another short break for about 10 minutes and then we'll have one last session.
So for how long?
Just 10 minutes, is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.